Hey, this is Ryan. I'm coming to you live from Salisbury, Maryland. I'm back in the States. And this week I'm bringing you a return trip to Medellin, Colombia. This is a trip I took in December of 2019, right before the COVID pandemic, so I remember it fondly. And next week, we're going to be bringing you a brand new episode on Bogota, Colombia. So dive into Medellin and look forward to seeing you all next week. Hi, I'm Ryan Davis.
And I'm Kieran Schmidt.
And this is Out of Office, a travel podcast.
The seat taken?
Hey, Kieran.
Oh, Ryan, another episode for you to break out your fantastic Spanish.
Oh, my gosh. I was just thinking, how many times I'm going to have to pause for you to, go on YouTube and look up how to say something.
I don't need to do that. You need to do that. And then you still can't say it. And then you make me say it. That's how that happens.
That actually is how it happens.
All right. What are we talking about today, Ryan?
We're going to talk about Medellin, Colombia, the great city of Medellin.
And you recently went there on a Colombian vacation.
I was there for 2 weeks. I was there for a while. I really got to know the city. I stayed in multiple neighborhoods. I went all over. I got a good taste of what there is to know about Medellin.
So this is going to be one of our patented, popular city guides.
City guides.
And so what kind of attractions will you be taking us through?
Oh, I'm going to talk about museums. I'm going to talk about some cool tours you can go on. Obviously, it's Colombia, so some places to drink good coffee. And, maybe where to have a beer or two, and maybe meet somebody.
So nothing drug related.
One of the tours might be drug related. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's quite the trade there, right? The kind of the history of drug running. It has a bunch of tours and tourism spots.
It's true. So Medellin has a rough history in the 80s and 90s around the Medellin cartel, which has been effectively destroyed after the death of Pablo Escobar, and the city has in the last 15 years had sort of a resurgence and has gotten a lot safer, and there's a lot more tourists. So they're definitely working to, try to erase some of that. Well, not erase, but they're definitely working to move past some of those. Legitimize. Yeah.
Yeah. They're going straight. They're going legitimate.
They're going legit. Totally.
Now, Ryan, I'm very excited because this means that you beat me to Colombia. It's been on my list for a while. You beat me to Colombia. So you're going to be doing the heavy lifting on this episode. So
What's
that means
from this episode from all the other folks.
That means you get to make the call. You know me. I love a bunch of banter up at the top. We got, Quest for Rick Steves. Maybe we talk about a tagline. Maybe a Wow Air.
Steves.
A Wow Air update.
Yeah,
maybe we got some listener mail. I got buckets of stuff to talk about, but you get to tell me, do you have so much on Medellin that we just got to go right to take off?
We got to jump in because there is just a lot to cover.
All right. Well, listen, tell the cabin crew.
Hey, cabin crew.
Flight attendants, prepare for takeoff, please.
All right, Ryan. So I have a question to kind of kick us off, which is, did you go right to Medellin or did you visit other places in Colombia before you got there?
So I went straight to Medellin on this trip. I was in Mexico with some friends in Puerto Vallarta, and I caught a flight on Christmas. Was it Christmas Day? It feels like the Christmas Day or the day after Christmas to Medellin. And then I was there, and then I did have a night in Bogota just because of the way the flights worked out. Because Medellin sort of doesn't have as many flights, as Bogota.
So is it hard to get a direct flight there?
I got a direct flight from Puerto Vallarta, so it can't be that hard.
Okay, all right. All right. So give a sense. So where is Medellin? What's it? What are kind of the trademarks of the city? Set the scene.
So Medellin is the second largest city in Colombia after Bogota. It's a city of about 2.5 million people, and it's nestled in the Andes Mountains. So it is a very green, pretty city. And in the touristy areas, or the places that people are going to stay or spend most of their time, it's super lively with a lot of bars and restaurants and galleries. Although it is not like a great walking city. They have a lot of cars and a lot of, you'll be walking down what will appear to be a pleasant street. And then all of a sudden there's like a super highway that you have to cross to get to the other side. So super car heavy, although they have invested a ton in public work projects. They have a public train system that is very safe and clean and new. They've got these massive escalators that we're going to talk about. That kind of.
Were you all right on those? I know you got that fear of volume below. I remember in Russia you got really lightheaded.
Thank you for remembering that I am scared of long escalators. I was nervous these would be like two single escalator, like really scary, but they're broken up into 5 or 6 different levels. So while you go very high, not every escalator is very long.
Oh, thank goodness. I didn't want to trigger your bathophobia. That's what it's called. That fear of depths and great volumes.
Yeah. I'm not French, so I don't have that other bathophobia. This is a...
So you didn't rent a car, right? So you were taking the trains, you were walking when you could. Do you have like an Uber equivalent, or is there a car service taxis?
There's Uber. Yeah. Uber's very inexpensive. Illegal though. So you have to sit.
Oh.
Yeah. So I don't know if folks know this, but when Uber is illegal, they simulate the fact the Uber driver by making you sit in the front seat.
Oh.
Yeah. So that's not my favorite thing
That changes the whole dynamic.
It really does. No one likes it. They don't want you in the front seat. You don't want to be in the front seat. It's very awkward. But I still really prefer Uber in a foreign country because you can, know exactly where you're going. You can see it on a map. You can feel very confident you're going to get there.
What would be a good gambit is if you were an illegal Uber driver. And you said to the tourist visiting, you said, there's a policeman right over there. You got to kiss me. You got to kiss me to make it look like we really know each other. Like I'm just dropping you off, honey. Is that good? That a good idea?
I don't know. I don't think that's a good idea.
I think the real Uber is really locking down on ideas like that. They're trying to be ultra safe now.
Yeah, they have to. Some cities you get in now, you have to enter a PIN code. Have you had to do that yet?
No, I think
Boston's still like Uber horse and carriage, right? It's still,
yeah.
You haven't evolved yet to cars, I think.
And does money go fairly far in Colombia?
Yeah, money does go fairly far. They're on the Colombian peso.
Mm-hmm.
So it's about 10,000 pesos to $3. So
when you get into those numbers, I find it so hard to do the conversion.
It is weird. It's weird when it's like I'll have a glass of wine that'll be 15,000 pesos. Like, whoa, that sounds expensive. And you're like, oh wait, that's $5.
Excuse me, sir. Thank
that's
you.
insane.
Mister, you thought I ordered 2.
No, I didn't order 2. So definitely an inexpensive place once you're there. I mean, because it is quite far. Airfare is not super cheap, but once you're there, you're saving on pretty much everything.
Now, Ryan, you mentioned the Andes Mountains, which makes me think of Peru. So maybe I gotta plug one of those episodes in the show notes. But Andes Mountains, I typically think cold. You're high up, you're cold. So is Medellin a chilly place? Do you need coach sweaters?
It's a warm place. It's when I was there in between Christmas and right after New Year's, it was 80 degrees almost every day.
It must be one of those microclimates.
Yeah, some days I was sweating. And Kieran, I don't sweat.
No, well, that's not. Yeah, that just means it's above 19 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah. No, it was very warm, and you got to wear sunscreen because that sun it feels closer than it does here in New York.
Interesting. All right, so it's kind of springy, summery. So it's very temperate for people who don't sweat like crazy like us. They'd probably really like that.
Yeah, I think it'd be perfect for folks like that.
Great. Well, so where do you want to start? Should we tackle like a museum?
Yeah, let's tackle some museums.
All right. Ryan, I'm going to help you out here on the first one. It seems like you visited a museum that's basically the area around Medellin, which is called Antioquia. So you went to the Museo de Antioquia.
Yes, I did. Museo de Antioquia.
That was pretty close for you. All right.
Good. Yeah. This is sort of the main museum in Medellin, and it's pretty fantastic. They have quite a bit of kind of global artists. They've got a lot of Colombian art, but their main sort of claim to fame is this huge exhibit dedicated to Fernando Botero. And Fernando Botero was born in Medellin. He's actually still alive, which I did not know. He's 87.
Botero, this is the guy who paints like rotund folks.
Yes, that's his signature style. He paints, people in this sort of cartoony, large. It's very joyful.
Fat. They look fat.
They do look. Yeah, definitely.
Did it make you miss the U.S.?
I made a couple of those jokes to people that I was with.
I bet you did. Yeah. And they were like, "We only speak Spanish. We don't know what you're saying."
I'm like, was he born in Medellin or Milwaukee? A lot of cheese in Milwaukee.
Yeah.
So he's got this, basically he's donated an extraordinary amount of his work to the museum. So they have this really huge collection, including some of his most famous paintings, including the Death of Pablo Escobar series that he did in the late 90s after Pablo Escobar was killed. So there's some really cool stuff. Are they
actually of the death?
Literally him literally Pablo Escobar standing on a rooftop getting full of bullet holes.
Oh my goodness.
I'm sure Fernando had no pleasure in painting that.
And is he like typically fat in them?
He's a little fat. I mean, he was not a thin man. He was well fed,
Sure.
So yeah, he is a little fat. I don't even think, but he's not this picture actually, it isn't sort of that exaggerated. Like, as some of his sort of large kind of super hyper exaggerated rich folks and his sort of work from the 70s and 80s.
All right, we're going to have to put that up on the Instagram.
Oh yeah, I took some
podcast.
Oh yeah, I took some great pictures. So it's a very cool museum, and it sits in the appropriately named Plaza Botero. And this is a big outdoor plaza that has over 20 Botero sculptures in the plaza. So make sure to leave, try to go on a day that it's nice out, because that was really something to see. There's just outside the museum, there's just a ton of these fantastic Botero sculptures. And there's some in New York.
Absolutely, in Columbus Circle.
Exactly, the Time Warner Building has some Boteros. So yeah,
are they all naked?
There are some of them are naked and some of them are sort of not naked. Yeah, but they're big folks. So
it's hard to find clothes that fit.
Exactly, especially in Colombia, because people just thinner there. And also on the other side of this plaza is the Palace of Culture Rafael Urbi. And this is a massive palace that was unfinished for 50 years and has recently been finished, like in the last decade, and is sort of astonishing to look at. I didn't get a chance to go in. They have like a little cafe there and a gallery. Wasn't open when I was there, but
reason to go back.
Reason to go back. Yeah, the outside of this building, fantastic, and you can see all that in the Plaza Botero. So, and the Plaza Botero is really exciting. There's market and there's a lot going on there as well. So, definitely you can spend a little time wandering around there.
All right, that sounds beautiful.
And if you haven't got enough fill of art, you can pop over to the second museum on my list, Museo de Arte Moderno.
That was a little Italian, but sure. All right, start over.
So if you haven't got your fill of art, you can head on over to the Museo de Arte Moderno.
A little Italian. But sure. Yeah, Museo de Arte Moderno.
Museo de Arte Moderno.
Perfect. Well, still a little Italian on the end there, but it's fine. It's fine. Yeah, no, it's definitely good enough. We're not going to keep going.
So this museum is a really fantastic place to see a lot of modern Colombian art. It's a smaller museum, but it does have quite a decent sort of permanent collection. They have exhibits coming in. It was super cheap. It was 8,000 pesos, so that's like $2.50.
Again, I have no idea what.
Yeah, it's about $2.50, and you've got several levels of outdoor. It's sort of like a mini Whitney, because you have several levels that are outdoors, and you can kind of get a great view of the city from that angle. So get to see some new Colombian artists and have a great view of the city. And I think it makes a terrific little sort of a couple-hour excursion.
And what kind of art is generally there?
It's all sort of like cool modern art. It's it's all it's almost all Colombian modern art. So you're not going to see, like the same folks you would see in MoMA. There's a lot of new people you're going to experience, and they have, it's large enough that there are quite a few sort of special exhibits. There was one sort of, it's hard to explain, but it was a sculpture piece that was all about the many folks who have died in violent tragedies in Colombia, and it was basically sort of like a invisible box of bones. It was pretty striking. I'll actually throw it up on the Instagram. But there were a lot of stuff like that. I mean, it had a diverse kind of set of modern art. So I enjoyed that because it was the opposite of the Boceros, where it's like mostly his work. This stuff is sort of all over the map and sort of pushes a lot of boundaries. And
it does make sense to me that for a country that's been torn apart by the drug trade for so long, did you find a lot of the art that you saw while you were there was kind of fueled by that, a country coming to terms with that recent history?
More in the Modern Art Museum, which makes sense.
Yeah.
Definitely, like, younger artists are trying to digest it, and, like, if you were somebody in your mid 30s, you kind of remember the violence because it ends in like the late 90s, but so it isn't as immediate for you. So that is something that you kind of see people trying to kind of digest what that meant, who are younger artists.
They're trying to digest the drugs. Is that one way to say that?
I don't know if that's the right way. Yeah.
Okay.
And then sort of the last traditional museum on this list is
all right, Ryan, I'm going to help you out here because we were just trying to pronounce it for a little while. We got to move on with the recording. So you went to a place called El Castillo, Museo y Jardines.
Exactly what I said. Yeah.
Exactly what you said.
Yeah.
So this is a museum with some gardens around it, I take it.
That is true. That is true. Even my Spanish is good enough to know that.
Wow.
This is, I love old homes owned by, like, wealthy industrialists.
Old rich people,
yeah.
Who just went around collecting things.
Yeah, this is exactly what this is. This is a house that was built in 1930 in a medieval Gothic style.
Oh, yeah.
And it's by, a famous architect, and was owned by a prestigious doctor, who are all sort of prominent in Medellin at the time. It's huge. I mean, the castle itself, and it does kind of look like a castle, is massive, and the grounds are, not they're not like Rockefeller grounds, but they're pretty fancy.
Sure.
And there's a lot of sort of classic Colombian art and artifacts that you can sort of see in the house. So this is sort of the complete opposite of the Modern Art Museum, where you're gonna get a lot of, like, old Colombian guys, paintings of old Colombian guys and gals, and sort of that a whole other sort of kind of traditional view of Colombia, in a pretty beautiful setting. The house itself is quite lovely.
And so this sounds like one of those houses that you particularly like, where you just kind of go and wander, not for like one particular piece, but for the general ambiance.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the art collection is secondary to the house itself and the grounds. And you get a kind of an idea of what not how regular folks lived in the 30s and 40s in Colombia, because it's a castle, but how the extreme Medellin society lived.
Got it.
And it really stands out. I mean, there's nothing else, after you've been in Colombia, which is this really, in Medellin, which is this really dense city, to go, in downtown, basically to be downtown and to be in this massive garden. It's sort of surreal. You're like, you can't even imagine a Medellin where it ever made sense to build this. But yeah, they did in 1930. So, definitely something to see, and a great way to spend an afternoon, especially walking around the gardens if it's nice out.
How long does it take to kind of see the full thing?
An hour and a half, 2 hours.
Okay. So it's pretty big.
Yeah, I mean, that includes like exploring the gardens. I was done the house at about an hour, and then I sort of hung out because it was so nice out and sort of walked around. And they do tours in English and Spanish. They did like one English tour that day that I missed it, but there wasn't. I don't think.
Did you go on the Spanish one?
Yeah, I did. I mean, I led it.
And did you?
I volunteered to lead it, which I thought was nice.
And so tours. So that kind of completes your what was that 3 museums that you chose. And
yes.
but that wasn't where you stopped your learning. You also got out on a number of tours around the city.
Oh, totally. So the coolest. So Comuna 13 is a neighborhood in Medellin that was really dangerous in the 80s and 90s during the height of the violence.
Mm-hmm.
And it has, through a series of citywide effort to really help clean the neighborhood up. The neighbors coming together to create a lot of positive spaces and a lot of outdoor art and other sort of investments in the neighborhood has really turned around and is sort of a big success story of modern day Medellin. And one of the cool things you can do is you can go to this neighborhood and you can basically do a tour of all the fantastic, they call it a graffiti tour. In Bushwick, we call it a mural tour. Sure. A tour of all the fantastic murals and sort of outdoor art that have been created and are constantly being created in this neighborhood. And you go up these escalators, and it is the largest. It's the largest outdoor escalator set in the world. And then you go up these 5 escalators, basically up this hill. And each level is another level where people live and work, and where there's art to look at. And it is very vibrant. There's a lot of folks about, both tourists and locals. And it was one of the coolest things that I did when I was in Medellin. Now, we went without tour. I was with a friend of the pod, Chase Whiteside. And
acquaintance of the pod.
Yeah. we're going to book a tour, and then it had started raining, so they canceled the tour we were going to book.
Sure.
So the next day when it was pretty out, we were like, well, we don't want to get caught in the rain again and miss this. So we ended up just sort of going on our own. I would say I wouldn't recommend doing that.
Why not?
Because it is sort of out of the way. Mm-hmm. And if you are not comfortable navigating neighborhoods that are not super tourist friendly necessarily, like the area that you're going to be in for the murals, totally fine. The areas around it, like there's a couple places where even locals like, you shouldn't walk down there. So I would say it would be easier to have a tour guide for this particular thing. And you can find, there are so many people who do these tours on Airbnb and otherwise. This is like one of the main places that tourists come. And so I would recommend getting a tour guide. It's cheap, and somebody would be able to help you figure out exactly where and what to see.
So now a quick question. So these escalators that you're talking about, the 5 set of escalators.
Yes.
So is the neighborhood basically built onto like a steep, like mountainside?
It's like a steep, like a hillside or a mountainside. Yeah. And so there used to be that when people would have deliveries and because there are like little delis and stores up here, and people live up there, that they would have to walk up hundreds and hundreds of sets of stairs to get to these houses. So the city spent quite a bit of money building these escalators, and they've become sort of one of the things that Medellin is looked at as one of the more sort of sophisticated urban development. They've done a lot of like they rebuilt the public transit, and they built these escalators, and they have a sky tram. So they've done like a lot to like kind of integrate all these outer neighborhoods into all of Medellin.
That begs the question: is there a funicular in this neighborhood? You know me, I'm very passionate about funiculars. I always ask that you ride a funicular.
So there is one, and I did not ride it.
Right. This is like the one thing I ask of you when you go to places.
I wanted to ride it. It was not in my itinerary, unfortunately. But look, I did the one in Bogota, so there's one there.
Okay, all right. Okay,
but there is one, and you can ride it for free with your. Not that it would be cost prohibitive to any American fund,
right?
But you can ride it for free with your essentially your Metro card or whatever they call their.
All right. Pass. Okay. So just bookmark it for our future funicular episode. We're definitely going to do that. This Medellin funicular. I like the sound that it's tied into the public transportation system.
Yes, it is. It's part of the, it's something people actually take to travel, not just for fun. Unlike the Roosevelt Island one, which I don't think anyone's ever actually taken for.
No, the Roosevelt Island, those are like sky buckets. That's not funicular.
That's not a funicular?
No. A funicular is the railway that goes up a steep slope.
Oh, well, no, there's a sky tram or whatever you're calling it.
No, oh my God. All this time I've been talking about funiculars. You think I'm talking about sky buckets. I mean,
yeah, I do.
It's total insanity. All right. Now the funicular episode needs to be just top. I mean, this is going to have to be like next week.
Yeah, you're gonna have to teach me because what do I know?
I say that every week. All right, so you did the mural episode. That sounds pretty cool, and it sounds like it's constantly changing. So it's something if you go back and forth to Medellin several times, you could probably take it. Always see some new interesting graffiti murals.
I would say it was like the must see thing that I did. Like if we had not done that would have been a huge disappointment.
And
it's really unique.
Any notable differences between the street art in Bushwick and that in Colombia?
It's so funny that you mentioned that because, I was obviously with another Bushwicker and, we were talking about how the density of murals in Bushwick is so outrageous at this point that it's hard to be impressed by density of murals anywhere. But there is pretty heavy mural density. A lot of them have to, there are some like definitely repeating themes. You see some Simpsons references. You can't miss them in any mural city. But overall, I mean, there's a very, very Colombian, a lot to do with Colombian history and Colombian politics. And that's another reason why if you have somebody who's, a tour guide with you, they're going to be able to help you sort of understand what everything means.
Yeah, it sounds like you really flubbed that opportunity. So... Did you manage to work in any tours where you actually went on the tour?
Okay, so there because of the success of this TV show. I don't know if you ever heard of it, called Narcos on Netflix.
Yes, I have heard of it. I haven't watched it.
Right. Two of the first two seasons take place in Colombia, and many episodes take place in Medellin because the main character in this initial part of the series is Pablo Escobar. So Pablo Escobar is like, obviously an extraordinarily terrible man, and has a horrible reputation in Medellin. So there was this class of tourists, and not just American, a class of young man who has, for whatever reason, has some kind of affinity for Pablo. So there's a lot of Pablo merchandise and Pablo tours that are, I don't think, there are a bunch of tours that don't take into account the scale of this man's crimes and tragedy. Right.
Yeah. There was a New York article about this that I will include in the show notes. That if you're interested in this, it's very interesting about basically the controversy that's surrounding this, this kind of narco tourism that's popping up. And of course, it brings in a lot of tourist dollars. So that's very positive for the community today. But, how do you feel like cashing in on such tragedy?
Yeah, and be wary of the information that you get from the various tour guides, because there are a lot of tours available for Pablo, and they are given by people who have different perspectives. So that is something you have to be wary of. But I think it's safe to not go on any of these tours. And if you want to hit a few key points, you can do that without going on a tour. I booked my tour through the Museum Pablo Escobar, which is run by Pablo Escobar's nephew.
Oh yes, yeah, I've read about this one.
Yeah, so Pablo Escobar's brother Robert was like sort of the CFO, if you will, the controller of the Medellin cartel. At one point, he was bouncing a $25 billion checkbook, so it wasn't a small job.
No small feat.
No small feat. He got a suspiciously short amount of jail time for this extraordinary crime, and is now out and owns the Museum Pablo Escobar that his son runs. And I met his son, and he was like a very strange man, obviously.
Did he teach you how to balance a checkbook, though? Because you could use some help on that.
Well, if you have that many zeros, it's not that hard to balance the checkbook. And Pablo famously has buried so much money around Medellin, people are still out there like trying to find it.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So the Museum Pablo Escobar is actually in one of Pablo's houses, in former houses in Medellin. He owned 400 houses, but he would buy them in pairs. So he had 200 pairs of houses. Do you know why?
Why would you buy two houses? No, I don't know why. Oh, because they would be connected by tunnels.
They would be connected by tunnels.
Boom!
Exactly.
Oh my God.
So
how impressed would Pablo Escobar's nephew be if I were on the tour and he asked that question? The only reason I knew is because I remember I've heard stories about how Pablo Escobar would have tunnels hidden underneath bathtubs, which I always thought was really brilliant because that feels very hard to get out under a bathtub.
So the tunnel in the house that the museum is in is actually in his safe. So you can go into the safe, which is it's a walk-in closet style safe. So it's large. I mean, he clearly has some things in there, and then you can see a tunnel, and that kind of a nice tunnel that goes underneath to the other house. But all the houses were obviously seized by the state and have been sold back to people. So they bought this house to make it into a museum. He's also got a replica there of Pablo's first airplane and a couple other things. But mostly, mostly you can skip. I think I wasn't a big fan. I thought the tour was like the tour itself, like it was overwhelmingly slanted towards Pablo's side of the story.
Pro Pablo.
It's very pro Pablo. I have a feeling that, there are definitely tours you can find where they're done by people who are on like team hunting Pablo. So there's all these different perspectives you can get. But I say skip them all. Not really worth it. There are two things that are interesting to see. So Pablo built this building called the Monaco Building that he didn't live in, but his wife and kids and family lived in. And he built it directly across the street from the massive Medellin country club, where they wouldn't let him in. So essentially, they rejected his membership, and to get back at them, he built just a massive, ugly building in front of their facility that almost looks like almost looked like a middle finger, just like a straight up building.
Wow!
So this was around for a long time, and then just a few years ago, because of all the narco tourists, the country knocked it down, and they used they actually used the rocks to build this memorial park.
Oh, wow.
Which is a very, very cool, lovely space.
What's it called?
It's called the Inflexión Memorial Park.
Okay.
And it pays victims to the 46,612 victims of narco-terrorism between the 70s and the beginning of the 21st century.
Wow.
in the country of Colombia. So an enormous amount of people. And so they've got the walls that are built with his house, which is it's a pretty big you to Pablo, right? Knock down his house, build
which is ironic because that means it's an FU to an FU. By the way, we're gonna have to take out that. We're gonna have to put a train whistle back over that. Rarely do you swear on the pod.
I think Pablo would appreciate the gesture.
Yeah,
right?
You're in your gangster mode.
Yeah. So, and then they have this black kind of rock that's been turned into a timeline. So you can effectively read the timeline of the narco-terrorism in Medellin from the beginning of the Medellin cartel to Pablo's death, and then they have little dots that represent all of the victims. So it's a pretty powerful park, and it's brand new. I mean, it is a year and a half old, if that. The guide was super bitter that it existed. He was like, it was much better to bring people to the Monaco building, but the Monaco building was a junk building, and this is a much better park. So definitely worth going there, and you can go there without a tour guide, obviously. Now, an interesting thing also to see is the cemetery where Pablo and his family are buried, and that's the
Cemetario, Jardines, Montesacro.
Yes. So you're so good, Kieran. How did you know that? This is the cemetery. It is very easy to find. It's in the neighborhood where Pablo grew up. And what is weird about Pablo's grave is that there are people bring flowers all the time. So it is a well kept up grave. He's there. His mother's there. He buried his bodyguard there, which I guess protect him in the afterlife or something. But it is interesting to see, but a little out of the way. And I think if you're going to do one Pablo related thing on your Medellin trip, to do the Inflexión Memorial Park, because it does have the weight and seriousness that this subject should be.
So did you actually visit the gravestone?
I did. Yeah. Because it was part of the tour. So
it's been super controversial. People like to take drug pictures near it.
I imagine. Yeah, it is. There's a couple other sort of narco celebrities buried in the same sort of place. And so, when we were there were multiple tours kind of waiting to see the grave. So it was a little strange.
I assume you behaved?
I took a picture, but I did not. Yeah, I didn't, do it. There were people like taking pictures with it as if they were going to, like it was very strange. Like, what are you taking a selfie with Pablo Escobar's grave? What is that for?
Yeah, I always carry a little Theodore Roosevelt that I take on vacation pictures. I feel like I wouldn't want to put him onto the Pablo Escobar gravestone.
Unless he was pissing on it. Or something like that.
Interesting. Yeah. So then I'd have to bring a little squirt gun of some sort. I don't know. This seems like a real production.
and then you would irritate somebody who you probably don't want to irritate.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
So that is, and I will leave this section with one thought, and that was the only interesting thing that my tour guide said to me, and that was one of the reasons why the Colombian government hates talking about Pablo Escobar is you can't tell the story of Pablo Escobar without telling the story of the corruption in the Colombian government at that time.
Oh, interesting.
Because there is no one or the other. And so while, of course, the Colombian government doesn't want to lionize this guy, glamorize this guy, also they don't want to, spend a lot of time talking about how deeply corrupt the government was that allowed such a thing to happen.
Sure,
and fester.
Of course.
So interesting stuff. And I think it is totally makes sense to me that Medellin wants to put the Pablo Escobar story behind them.
All right, I like your idea of skip the hokey museum and go to the Inflexión Memorial Park and the cemetery if you want a piece of that story that's a little truer to the reality.
Definitely. But so while you're in Colombia, it is incredibly important to drink some Colombian coffee.
Ah, sí, of course. Yeah. Claro que sí.
So I'm going to talk about one specific neighborhood that I had some really good coffee in. That's also a really fun neighborhood to walk around in. There's some great parks, and it's one of the more walkable spaces in Medellin.
Okay.
And that is El Barrio Lorales.
Okay.
And this is one of the best walking neighborhoods in the city. A ton of cute cafes and bars. And just a really pleasant space to spend an afternoon walking around. And I'll highlight two cafes that I had, both really good coffee and also just great places to sort of chill, read a book, check your internet if you have to do that because they have fast Wi-Fi.
Record a podcast?
Unfortunately, not that fast.
No, that's true. I had to carry it myself, I remember.
Exactly. Thank you for that, by the way. You were excellent.
Oh, you.
So the first one...
The fans are saying it for you. You didn't have to throw that in.
Yeah. The fans made it be known they were ready for me to come back. The first one is the Café Zeppelin, which is, of course, named after the Zeppelin, the
flying
blimp,
sure.
Kind of thing. And it's a really lovely cafe. They've got great coffee. They've got wine and snacks. So it sort of feels like a indie enough cafe that there's like flyers for guitar lessons and like things happening in the city. Really enjoyable place. I spent many a nice afternoon there, reading on my laptop, just kind of enjoying the sun because they got a great outdoor space. And then the Naturalia Café, another, it's close to a college, so it's sort of bustling with a lot of people sort of in studying and enjoying the space. Great coffee, and they have like sort of a random lunch menu where they prepare something like hot and fresh every day that's different. They have like a lunch special. And I had the lunch special, and it was some kind of, traditional Colombian rice and bean thing that was so good. It's actually probably one of the better meals I had in Colombia at this little coffee shop.
Sure.
So totally enjoyable places that I would recommend. and you get a chance to check out this cool neighborhood as well.
There's something about rice and beans in Spanish-speaking countries. They do taste better than what you can get in the United States.
Because they spend more time making. They're not just some side dish, It's like something they do with pride.
Yeah, I also think they know the spice balance better than we do.
Well, that's most definitely true.
And I'll tell you, that actually ties into my last stop. Just a little teaser.
Oh, God.
Just a little pre-teaser.
Folks, we're almost there.
Stick around.
So I want to say something about food. I'm a big restaurant guy.
Yeah.
People might.
Yeah. You're like you're big, right? You're like a Botero.
So, so one of the things that I wanted to steal this quote, but Chase said that I had to credit him, was he said, if you go to Medellin, pack a lunch. It is not a city with a very interesting food scene.
That is genuinely surprising to me, because I would have thought, because it's on the tourist path now, but maybe it's just because it's so new on the tourist path that the foodies haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah, I mean, there are some foodie attempts. There are definitely some places that are going for that foodie dollar.
Mm-hmm.
We went to the number one place, and it's called Carmen. And if you do searches around, you try to find what the best restaurant in Medellin is, almost everybody's going to say this place, Carmen.
Mm-hmm.
And we went and we got the fancy menu, and our advice was, skip it. It's just not worth it. It's pretentious, and it's not great. It was not something that we enjoyed or thought was really worth the time or the effort that we put into it. That said, we randomly stumbled upon this bizarrely lovely, and I say bizarrely because we didn't expect to stumble upon it, this Vietnamese place called Halong. Kitchen Halong.
Like Halong Bay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's this outdoor area that's sort of lit by these kind of lighted umbrellas, but surrounded by green, and it sort of feels like you don't even feel like you're in the city anymore. And it's absolutely, we ate there twice. That's how much we liked it. It was quite a special place, and great drinks. It was actually the only place that serves any natural wine in the city.
Thank God you found it.
We looked. So yeah, thank God we found it.
No, but I actually that's very interesting, actually, which is you went to a place where the food scene wasn't already like so hot and picked over that you didn't have like 10 restaurants you wanted to hit while you were there. And so it encouraged you going out and exploring. So in a way, that's pretty neat.
Yeah, we definitely explored and tried to find some places that we really liked. The arepas and stuff, that stuff is great. The street food is, super, super prevalent. But we, in terms of just like the fancy kind of places that I'd want to go, like, it did not a city for that yet. So I would say just skip that. Do some street food. Check out this Vietnamese place. Do some cafes, but just keep it low key.
All right. Is there like a Colombian specialty? Is there a food that's like really Colombian?
Arepas.
Oh, arepas. Right.
Yeah.
Did you eat a lot of those?
I mean, I live in a neighborhood that has so many arepas everywhere.
Yeah. I mean, plus there's only so many arepas a man can eat before you do start looking like a Botero. You can see where those fed off one another.
Most definitely. If I was only eating arepas, they ate a lot of soup too. But it's hot out, so it's like, I don't know, I want soup. It's 85 degrees.
Yeah, it's like what my grandfather used to do at the beach in July.
Yeah,
like cooking up a nice chicken soup.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And it was always very confusing. Like, I don't want that.
That is a strange memory. And then I just want to talk a little bit about the gay scene, because
thank goodness.
I know our listeners demand it. So one of the main sort of party / tourist neighborhood is El Poblado.
Mm-hmm. Poblado.
And this is a very hip. It is at night on like Thursday, Friday, Saturday night. The parties spill into the streets. I mean, when I was like, I wonder why so many 20-something straight backpackers come here. And this is why.
Okay.
There's a lot happening.
Wait, but you said you're talking about gay.
Well, this is where the gay clubs happen to be.
You're setting the scene. Got it.
Yeah, but this is like the fancy neighborhood. It's got the fancy cafes, and you can do your high end shopping there. There's a bunch of fancy-ish restaurants. I mean, I had the worst margarita in my life at this Mexican place there. I mean, it was like an offense to margaritas. I was like, what are you doing down here? So again, I was just me trying a random place. But it is. There's a lot going on there, and so if you just want to walk around, the several different parks that are really buzzy and exciting, and have a drink or two, see the excitement. There's a couple gay bars in one sort of area, but the one that I thought was super cool was Club Oráculo.
Mm-hmm.
And Club Oráculo, it's like 3 stories. It's really aggressively decorated. Each story has like a different kind of music. I'm going to say some stuff here you might not know, but like EDM, and there's like
is that like a sex thing?
No, it's a type of music.
Yeah, EDM. Yeah. Sure, yeah, I know all about EDM.
EDM, pop. Like there's different floors, big dance floor. Really kind of
pop's like what you get to drink.
No, pop music.
Oh, sure. Yeah,
Britney,
pop music. Yeah, I know all about pop music.
You know Britney.
Sure. That's right. I do know Britney.
Yeah. And it was a very cool place. We loved the vibe, and it was worth it for the Instagrams alone. I mean, so many just sort of the decorations were so bizarre, and each floor they really took their time to make kind of fascinating. So we had a ball there. And that was sort of my favorite club. But anywhere you go sort of around that area, it's going to be popping. There's going to be a lot of tourists, and you're going to be able to have a good time. So, the 2 neighborhoods, that one was a little more party for me. I like the quieter cafe one.
All right, sounds pretty fun.
I know.
So even though the food wasn't that great, you still got to dance the night away.
I lost weight over Christmas for the first time ever, maybe. So I want to thank Medellin for that. I'm gonna go on the Medellin diet. It's cocaine and that's a joke,
no.
Mom. That's a joke.
Oh, geez.
So that in a nutshell is Medellin. And since I've been talking a lot, can you just give the amazing Kieran 60-second overview of everything that I saw?
Sure, absolutely. Well, it sounds like you had a really busy trip. And okay, before I dive into the kind of summation list, and of course we'll put it all in the show notes, and we'll give links out to each of the places. You were there for like over a week, right? Like week and a half.
I was there for like over 10 days. Yeah.
Okay.
Easy.
And it sounds like from this list, I'm gathering that would you recommend people go for that long?
No.
Okay.
No.
So what's like a good amount of time?
I think you could go for 3 or 4 days and see all the main stuff.
All right. 3 or 4 days. So that gives you plenty of other time to go out and continue to explore other parts of Colombia.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I look forward to in the future doing Cartagena, which
I'm surprised. Why didn't you hit it on this trip?
We just didn't have time. I was going to go with my friend, and then he had to pop back, so I didn't want to do a whole city by myself after I'd been already on the road for so long. So,
yeah.
I figured I would get to really know this city, and I did so many things. I went so many places that I feel like I know Medellin.
Absolutely. So first you hit up a bunch of museums. You got the Museo de Antioquia, and that's got some of the kind of rotating exhibits that you're talking about, a lot of Colombian art. Then you went to the Modern Art Museum, Museo de Arte Moderno, and I believe that's where you said like you saw a lot of modern art that's kind of struggling with the changing nature of Colombia. And then finally El Castillo Museo y Jardines, and that's one of those classic historic homes that you like to just wander around and pretend that you're a rich robber baron trying to make a house that looks like it belongs in Europe. Then you did a bunch of tours. Then you went to Comuna 13, where one would usually do the graffiti tour. You decided to freelance it, but you recommend a tour. Then you did the Pablo Escobar. Then you did the Pablo Escobar tour, which you do not recommend, even though it's in the family. Instead, stop by the Inflexión Memorial Park, where the demolished middle finger building that Pablo Escobar had created, and instead a beautiful tribute to the 46,612 victims of narcoterrorism, a place to reflect. You can also go and see the gravestone at Cemetario, Jardines, Montesacro. And then finally, after you've done all that touring, you're looking for food, you're looking for a little cafe. You like a Café Zeppelin and Naturalia Café. And then food-wise, surprisingly, Vietnamese. Your radar went off. You went right to the natural wine, and you said you went to a place called Halong and recommend it highly. And then finally, if you're looking for it sounds like the club scene generally straight or gay, you got to go to El Poblado. And particularly if you're looking for a great gay club, you recommend Club Oráculo.
Oh my God, that was incredible.
Oh, I'm exhausted. I feel like I've been there with you.
Well, I think that we have given our listeners a good idea about what Medellin's all about.
Absolutely. I feel like I've just watched the full movie Medellin as featured in Entourage on HBO, or at least what I imagine that movie was like.
Oh my God, I forgot about that reference. I'll have to check that out.
So, we'll go check that out. But Ryan, I think it's time for the last stop.
The last stop.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the last stop on this train. Everyone, please leave the train.
No, Ryan, this is the last segment of the show. It's the final segment. It's your favorite segment. It's my favorite segment. It's popularly known as the People segment. It's where we each take a moment to reflect and share one thing that has inspired our feeling of travel, even if we haven't been out traveling. You've been out traveling, but some of us have small children and we're at home, but you have to keep that spirit of travel alive. So it might be something you read or you bought or something you cooked. It might be something you stumbled upon or something you searched out yourself. Anything that fed the spirit of wanderlust, even during the workaday week. So Ryan, I've got a question for you, which is, you might be able to guess it. Ryan, do you have a last stop this week?
I do have a last stop. Anybody who knows me knows that I am a huge fan of Diego Rivera. Did you know that?
Yeah, no, I knew that. Even though you haven't been to the one museum that I keep trying to send you to in Mexico City that he custom built.
Well, New York is getting a little bit of Diego Rivera in this fantastic new exhibit that's coming to the Whitney called Vida, Americana. Mexican muralists remake American art, 1925 to 1945.
Oh, very cool.
And it opens on February 17th and runs all the way to May 17th. And it is going to be a fantastic glimpse led by Diego Rivera of these muralists and artists who sort of led Mexican art for 20 years, 200 different works. So I am super excited to see some Diego. I mean, I love going to the Whitney. So any excuse to go, I'm there. But definitely looking forward to that, and it's going to be a great event.
Yeah, that's very cool. I remember I've seen a bunch of Diego Rivera murals before, some in Mexico City, but the ones that are so seared in my mind are actually at the Detroit Institute of Arts, where
I was blown away.
Yeah,
by those.
absolutely. I remember when you went, and they're fantastic. So if there's anything that's even close to that level of splendor and vibrant storytelling, it would be a killer exhibit. I'll look forward to the reviews, including your review.
Thank you, Kieran. Do you have a last stop this week?
I do have a last stop this week, Ryan. I throw into the intro of this, it might be something that you cooked. And you know that I really like to cook. And it is definitely a way that I feed my spirit of wanderlust. I've got, I've got my bookshelf full of travel guides and travel reference materials to my right here. And to my left here in the studio, I've got just shelves and shelves of international cookbooks. But one of the things...
And beans.
That's right. I've talked about Rancho Gordo, my favorite bean company. They source a lot of their beans from Mexico, Central America. And I've talked about my favorite coffee place here in Boston, George Howell, source their beans from Central America mostly. And now I luckily have found a place in Cambridge, Massachusetts that is really going to continue to help. That is really going to help me continue my exploration of international cooking. It's called Curio Spice Company, Curio. And it's like 10 minutes outside my door. I don't know how I managed to not go in there yet, but I will be a frequent consumer there soon because they just have incredibly hard to find spices. Right, you're not you don't cook very much, right?
I boil water occasionally.
So one of the things, if you like to cook and you've got all these great international cookbooks, the things that can be so frustrating is you find a recipe you desperately want to make, and then there's like one or two spices that you just can't get in the United States that, might be incredibly common in the cuisine of the country that you're reading about. Well, Curio Spice Company specializes in those sorts of hard to find spices, and they directly source them often from farmers right from the country. Just to give you like a quick just sense of what you can find here. They've got Sri Lankan ground ginger made directly from Sri Lanka, sent over. You can get a Japanese yuzu salt, which is made. It's like the rind of a dried citrus fruit that you can get in Japan, combined with a salt. You can get more common spice mixes like za'atar, which I'm always looking for. It's a great Middle Eastern spice. It's becoming much more popular in the United States. And on and on and on. And one thing that I like to do is go get a random ingredient that I'm not familiar with, go back to my computer, find a bunch of international recipes, learn about the cuisine of a country that, it really does transport me there. So Curio Spice Company, and even better, if you're not in Boston, you're not in Cambridge, Massachusetts, you can order them online at curiospice.com. I will put it in the show notes.
Well, I hope that next time I'm in Boston, you cook me up something spicy.
Well, Ryan, I will literally cook you up something spicy, but I didn't like the tone of your voice on that.
That's all I meant.
But Ryan, you're visiting Boston just a couple weeks. I think we could definitely swing by Curio. We can pick you up some nice spice mixes.
Finally,
you can finally freshen up that boiled water that you're making.
I use salt sometimes.
Now, Ryan, what are we talking about next week?
Well, I think that you're going to take us to Quebec.
That's right. No better time to visit Canada than in the dead of winter. So for the next couple episodes, we're going to be focusing on two of our favorite places in Canada. I'm going to talk about Quebec next week, and then following that, Ryan, you're going to bring us to Montreal.
Yes, we are going to do. This is a Quebec deep dive.
A Quebec deep dive, a Montreal deep dive. We're really doubling down on the city guides this month, but you know what? It's what the people want.
Yeah, no, we got to give the people what they want, and they love to hear us tell, give them a good advice. Well, Keenan, I am excited, and I'm looking forward to, saying bonjour to you next week.
Okay, I hope your French is a little better than your Spanish.
Well, until then, I'm Ryan Davis.
And I'm Kieran Schmidt.
And this is Out of Office, a travel podcast.
This seat taken.
I think my Spanish improves every episode.
I mean, it may improve, but do you feel like you got one word down in Medellin? Did you learn one word just perfectly that you could end the podcast with this week?
Anoche.
Last night?
Yeah.
Well, you know what? I knew what it meant, so ding ding, you win.